A defibrillator is the life-saving equipment. When the heart is not beating normally, the defibrillator is used to deliver controlled electric shock to the heart. This shock can help restore the heart's normal rhythm in cases of sudden cardiac arrest. In countries like South Korea and the UK, defibrillators can be found in public places like pubs, markets, and crowded places. What about Ghana? The Ghana Harmonized Health Facility Assessment Report 2023 says only 5% of hospitals in Ghana have the required basic equipment in consulting rooms. We make our way to Ghana's oil city, Takoradi. The Effia Nkwanta Regional Hospital receives referrals from across the region. It is fair to say that it serves over 3 million population. Apart from cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, which involves chest compressions and rescue breaths, can the hospital save your life if you go into cardiac arrest?
I would say that we're doing the best that we can under the circumstances. At the A&E, where you are most likely to be taken to, we have just one defibrillator, but for a unit of that size, we should have more. So in your case, if you are the only one who needs the machine at that point in time, yes, we will be able to do it for you. But if there are many patients who need the same service, then it becomes a challenge.
Dr. Joseph Kojo-Tambil, the medical superintendent of the hospital, is passionate. He wants his medical staff to get the best equipment to serve patients. But he also wears another hat to manage the information he gives the media and also assure residents of the Western region and beyond that they can rely on his facility. With some hesitation, he admits that even the only available defibrillator has challenges and calls for resourcing of the hospital.
And the defibrillator doesn't work properly, like it function
with a few challenges, but with batteries and all that. But when called upon, it would function. But like I said, we need more of those machines rather than just one.
So we went to the Accident Emergency Center to find out how the facility handles cases of cardiac arrest.
We have one automated external defibrillator. It's faulty because the battery is irreplaceable. So the battery went down and we can't replace it. So now it's malfunctioning. So when we have, if our patient suddenly arrests, it's difficult for us to determine the rhythm so that we can apply the shock. We are not able to do that. This is a life-saving machine. You can have cardiac arrest at any point in time. When we are intervening, it's a must that we have an automated external defibrillator.
The only defibrillator, which is now 40, was even donated by foreign students who saw the need for the equipment in the emergency room. To make you understand the issue better, Regina Kweku, the unit head of the Accident and Emergency Center, shares a recent story.
We had this patient that was brought in with electrical shock. With that one, because of the external electrical current, it sends the rhythm to a different rhythm. So if we had this, we could have reversed, we could have shocked the patient to set the rhythm to the normal. But because we didn't have, we continued with our CPR, and when we were all exhausted, we had to call it.
For those who do not understand what the term "call it," it simply means they had pronounced the patient dead. How often do they call it?
So that's happened very often. Very often.
The search for a defibrillator at the Effia Nkwanta took me to the intensive care unit. Here, they provide critical care to patients. The unit also needs a defibrillator. Is there one here? Mavis Mills is a supervisor at the ICU.
We need, for now, we don't even have a defibrillator here. They brought one, but they said there was a problem with their battery. So they sent it, and for now we don't have a defibrillator.
So just like the Accident and Emergency Center, what do nurses do to save the patients who needs defibrillation?
For now, we can't do anything. What we can do is to give the CPR and advance to the drugs and other stuff. But when it gets to the part where we would have to shock, we don't have it. So it's a concern.
Enough of the defibrillator tool. Now let's focus on another important tool, a ventilator. A ventilator is a medical device that helps people breathe when they are unable to do so on their own. It plays a critical role in supporting patients' respiratory functions.
We need transport ventilators. As I already indicated, here is the Regional Emergency Center. So they bring all sorts of trauma cases, surgical cases. And you need to put them on ventilator. You need to take the work of breathing from them.
Now that we know the importance of a ventilator, let's find out whether the Effia Nkwanta Emergency Center has one.
We don't have ventilators too at the emergency. So we do with our normal oxygen and cylinder. Sometimes you need to intubate the patient and put them on ventilators so that the ventilator will do the work of breathing for them. But we don't also have ventilators. It's part of the basic equipment that we need at the emergency.
So we go back to the intensive care unit to find out whether there is a ventilator.
We had problems. We realized we had technical problems with the ventilators. We couldn't use them. So we take cases in here where we didn't need ventilators. We went to school to learn to care for critically ill patients, and then you have the space and everything to work, but then small issues like ventilators and other equipment are a limitation to practicing what you've gone to learn. It's really a problem. This particular one was giving dry air instead of moist air.
Of what use is a ventilator in an ICU if it is not functional? The Accident Emergency Center lacks so many equipment like monitors, perfusers, and many more.
Like our patient monitors, this is a 33-bed capacity emergency, and we have only one patient monitor, which is not adequate for all the patients that we receive in. Sometimes we wish that we have more so that all our critical patients will be put on monitor so that we'll be able to monitor them well. But here is the case that we have only one, so we make do with the only one that we have.
Dr. Tambil believes if government retools them, they can provide the best care ever.
At the moment, I said that we would do with more defibrillator machines. We would do with cardiac monitors for patients who need critical monitoring. We will need a ventilator at least there, because at times when the doctors need to escalate the care to give the patient an opportunity to survive. The standards are that we should have at least one functional ventilator in the accident and emergency.
It is now obvious that finding a working ventilator and defibrillator at Effia Nkwanta seem akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. But the story is not all that gloomy. Government is building a new hospital complex. However, should government focus on completing the building before retooling the hospital, or should the government provide tools now to save many lives?
If you are anywhere in the Western region, and when something happens to you, like an accident, or you have a heart attack, or some other condition, you are most likely to be brought to Effia Nkwanta. And if we are not in the best situation to be able to help you, the consequences can be dire. So we want to appeal to all of them to look at this place. Let's collaborate and see where they can put their money in to improve on the quality of services for Effia Nkwanta, and they do so, it is for the entire citizenry of the Western region and even beyond.
Clearly, the Effia Nkwanta Regional Hospital needs healing. Jojo Kopnam, Joy News.
Them get eyes, but them know they see.
And that's how we kickstart our big stories this morning, talking about our sick hospitals. Hospitals usually would cure the sick, but when our hospitals are sick themselves, then you ask yourself where we go from there. Well, joining us for a conversation on all of these developments, we have Bright Emisanyako, his national chairman, Ghana Coalition of NGOs in Health. We also have joining the conversation Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani, Deputy Ranking Member, Parliamentary Health Committee, and Dr. Kwame Sapong-Esiedu, a CDD Fellow. Gentlemen, good morning. If you can hear me, I would be glad if you could unmute and let me know you're on the other end. Good morning. Dr. Esiedu, Mr. Emisanyako. Yes, good morning. My phone is on mute. I can hear you. All right. So my first bit to you, I'd like to find out, what is your reaction? We heard from the leadership at the Effia Nkwanta Hospital. They are saying that defibrillator situation has been rectified. That is the claim made, that now they have 1 or 2 defibrillators. So if someone suffers cardiac arrest or some heart-related issue and they come there, there's a way of dealing with them. We haven't got to the bottom of that claim to independently substantiate it. We do know that sometimes there's so much pressure on some of the leaders of these medical outfits, so that if they were to say a certain thing, just like in the educational sector, they would catch flack. Some could lose their positions, so they would be tight-lipped about some developments. But for now, what do you make of the general picture that this paints in respect of our medical system? I'll start with you, Dr. Sapong-Esiedu.
Right. Benjamin, good morning and thanks for having me. Am I clear?
You are. Please go ahead.
For me, there's no news here. I have said this for the 3rd time since the story broke. And I keep asking myself, where is the news? And why do I say so? There's no news because these things have been published by the government itself, by the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health and the WHO and Global Fund as far back as July last year. They told us that only 5% of our hospital consultation rooms have the basic equipment. We've known that. We have all the statistics of defibrillators, X-ray machines, incubators, and all that in the country. These have been documented by government. The problem has been that we haven't read these reports that the government has put out itself. The only thing that this has done, which is brilliant, is it has put footage to the report, because like I keep saying, our political leaders know we are lazy. They know we don't read. So they would put these things in reports, very voluminous, and know very few of us would read them. And therefore, people would not get angry. And therefore, they can take decisions that are not backed by the data, like going to build Agenda 111 and other things, when we haven't retooled our hospitals. The other thing is the Ghana Statistical Service then went further this month to put out the health survey. It clearly says that it tells us the implications of what was in the harmonization report in July, that if you do not have these equipment, this is how it impacts your healthcare. That document is also available. We all know, I've seen that Joy is serializing, especially for the reproductive health and sexual health aspects of the Ghana Statistical Service report. You are serializing it. Again, it's the same thing. Our politicians know we are lazy. They know we wouldn't read. They know that even if we read, the few of us who do it, we wouldn't get the traction. And therefore, they'll put these things in there. So I don't want us to put this at the bottom of, say, Effia Nkwanta or, for that matter, any other hospital. The truth of the matter is the government knows that only 5% of our hospitals have the basic equipment, and 95% of those consultations, if you go into them, they might misdiagnose you because it's not because of incompetence of the health professionals. It is just because they do not have the tools to work. So for me, I don't see the story, to be honest. And it's sad that as a health professional and a health researcher, I actually see such abominable numbers. And I'm telling you, I don't see the story because this is no news. It is an indictment on all of us, but that is the reality.
And I perfectly understand you why you're saying there's no story. From our end, we'll have to make it prominent because it is a story. But I completely understand you. It has become so commonplace that you've almost become inured to it, right? You see it everywhere, and it's more like, okay, this is the situation across the board anyway. Yeah. So why should we make a mountain out of a molehill?
Yes.
It's happening everywhere.
Yes, Benjamin, and that is the sad thing. You see, we're talking about Effia Nkwanta Reg as a regional hospital. In actual fact, when you look at the statistics in the harmonization report, Effia Nkwanta doesn't look bad. The regional hospitals, yes, the statistics for them are abominable, and it shouldn't be like that. But if you go to the district hospitals, health centers, and CHIP compounds, they are diabolic. The numbers, anyone should go and pick that report and read it. And so I say that there is no story here because these reports were signed by officials we have entrusted. You can go and take the report and see the acknowledgement. All the big wigs who run our health systems are signatories to this report. So if you start by telling me that there's pressure being put on people not to speak, I see hypocrisy. Because at the end of the day, you signed the report, you commissioned it, you put it in public in July of last year, you know the content, and now someone puts a video to it, and then you are raising hell and fire saying that it doesn't exist. What is in your report then? Did I write the report, or you wrote it yourself? You see, and that is why, yes, it's become so common. I see it so commonly. I look at the data as part of my day job, and I see it, and I'm saying it is no news. The news is the fact that you guys have done a brilliant job and put it in a way that the Ghanaian would appreciate how dangerous these things are. And that I commend you for. But the actual content that we are, shambolic when it comes to some of these statistics is no news.
Thank you for situating the conversation that way, Dr. Kwame Sapong-Essiedu. Hold for me. I see a comment here that I completely, it just got me thinking. Nana Obi is on Facebook. He says, is that a hospital? Yes, that's a hospital. What do you see there with the rusty chairs look at that, cracks, crevices, roofing, lighting. Yes, that is a hospital for you in Ghana. I mean, this could be a death trap. It could cave in at some point, and maybe you're going for health and you could meet something else. God forbid. But let me come to Bright Emisa Nyako. You are the national chairman, Ghana Coalition of NGOs in Health. Bright, what comes to mind? What picture does this paint to you of our health situation in the country?
Thank you very much once again, and good morning for having me, and good morning to my two panelists. I am taking cue from where Dr. Sapon ended, and you agree that, yes, it looks to new people who are seeing this as a story, but for some of us who have been in the sector and continue to scout around the communities, have seen this over and over and over again. And this is the reason why we sometimes say our health facilities and the system itself is sicker than giving treatment to us as people, citizens of Ghana. If you look at such a situation as a regional hospital, then you can go down to look at a CHIPS compound or what we call the health center or the district hospital that provide primary health care. If we don't have these basic health equipment that supports delivery at emergency and is able to give life back to people who perhaps are having some attacks, then you can imagine what we talk about when you go to a district facility and then they transfer you in an ambulance to visit a tertiary facility for which we are seeing one today. So it is a very dying situation and very abhorrent that our politicians sometimes think of the physical things that people will see and praise them on. Like we are building 111 hospitals. Are they going to be finished? Are we going to make it fully functional and get all these equipment there? What will make the Ghanaian or the citizen be happy that we have a better healthcare system? Is it the facility, the nice facility we are going to see? Probably yes, to all of us who are failing ourselves, because we don't know much of what goes into health service delivery. So when we see that somebody is making pronouncement of probably building the 111 hospitals, building Terminal 3, and then what we call it, rich and other things, we think that is all. It is not a flashy buildings. It is what is in it to support our healthcare system. And that is what we need to look out for and be able to champion government to make them functional and support to our health system. And in the long term, at least bring our families, our children, our mothers back to life. These are the things we are missing. And my brother, sometimes you would say it over and over and over as advocates. And they, I mean, take it from me, the government today is not touched even by demonstrations and whatever and so on. So they only do things that might give them votes the next time. And those are the flashy things that we see, and people praise them for it, leaving the very most important things that will bring back life to us to survive in a very hard economy we find ourselves today.
And, you know, all of this breaks my heart when I hear them, and the lack of, the lack of logic, okay? You see, and we must say it as it is. I think we're too nice as a people when it comes to these matters, and that's why our leaders take advantage of us. We have so many hospitals in dire need of logistics, even manpower, finances, renovation, and all of that. I remember sometime, was it last year or a year and a half ago, there was a hospital somewhere in
with Joy FM,
in the Northern Belt. One of you has your microphone on and it's coming in, if you don't mind. In the Northern Belt of the country, and this hospital was, I think, a district or something hospital. It was so dilapidated. It hadn't seen any sort of renovation for decades. This was a place where in a pediatric ward, a snake was found. And you ask yourself how we can look at that and say we are putting up other hospitals when all these hospital facilities are there. But let me bring into the conversation now Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani. He is Deputy Ranking Member, Parliament's Health Committee. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Dr. Nawani. Dr. Nawani, if you can hear me, please unmute so I can know that you are there with me. Hello, Doc? All right, so I'll come back to Doc later. Sylvester sends me a message. He says, Benjamin, what you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. In Sandema, all the departments are in dilapidated structures. The district assembly, that is the Ministry of, is it MOFA you're saying? Okay, so Ministry of Food and Agriculture, because that's not finance. Health Directorate, this list goes on. Yet it was elevated to a municipal status only recently. I'm wondering the criteria for such elevation. So coming back to you, Dr. Essiedu, you look at the situation in our hospitals. We've spoken about defibrillators. I mean, dialysis machines, incubators, among others. Having gone round, having conducted all these surveys, what are some of the most basic things that these hospitals should have? I may even be talking about things that are too, already out there, big in scale. What are some of the most basic things that these hospitals require that they do not have oftentimes when you go around, Dr. Essiedu?
Like I said, if you get the health harmonization report, 10% of all pharmacies in hospitals in Ghana have the basic thermometer to maintain a cold chain. 10%. 90% don't have it. Which means if you went to these hospitals, you do not even know how your insulin or your vaccines were stored. That's not me saying it. That is documented. You understand? They tell us that only 5% of consultation rooms have the full complement of equipment. When you look at, what do you call it, dialysis machines, there are about 5 regions that have none. Ventilators, same. You see, the list goes on and on and on. And like I've said, this conversation shouldn't be about raising the temperament of the public, but question the thinking of our political leaders. And I say so because if you have a document like this, and then you write a budget, and that's why I said we should elevate the conversation above the heads of the technocrats who run our health system to the politicians, because the technocrats do not provide the funding that runs health.
Right.
But if the politicians have these documents, they know, for example, the number of doctors. They know what our doctor-to-patient ratio is. They know the number of hospitals we have in Ghana that require a doctor to function. They know that each of our 5 teaching hospitals, for example, requires a minimum of about 300 doctors because they are training people to run. So they already take out about 1,500 of our doctor pool. And they know that the cause of, no bed syndrome is not because there's a lack of beds, but there's a lack of health human resource. But we are adding on more beds because we are building new hospitals. You ask yourself, does the statistics back the decision of the policymakers? And that is where the conversation for me should be situated.
Let me come to Bright again before I try Dr. Nawani one more time. Bright, so what Dr. Essiedu says actually reminds me of a happening. Some 2 years ago or so, I had contracted COVID and I was on my own. It was one early morning, maybe from midnight till around 2 o'clock. I just felt this uneasiness in my chest. It was really bad. And I had tried calling my brother, couldn't reach him, a health, a doctor, couldn't get the person. Unfortunately, I think all these people I was calling, you can imagine, were dead in sleep. So I had to finally muster courage because I realized something was happening to me. Got into my car and started driving. Went to the 37 military hospital. Unfortunately, at the time, where I would go, the emergency area, there was some fumigation going on. There was a place outside where only military people were being treated or those who had served. So I couldn't get treatment. Went to what is now the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. And, it's only God because I went there. This was around maybe 3 getting to 4 o'clock in the morning, dawn. There was no bed available. I asked whether they had oxygen or anything there was none. And even worse, a doctor was only going to be able to show up at around 8 a.m. Imagine, 4+ hours, and I had to wait. I turned around. I was praying all through. I turned around. By the time I got to the car park, back to my car, I was feeling much better. I drove home, and that was the end of it. I could have easily died. Our health system. That's what it is. So when you look at all of this and how shockingly, like Dr. Essiedu says, in these health facilities, you would have only 10% with something as basic as thermometers. Do you think our politicians, especially, who allocate money to all of this, are doing us any justice? Is it that they are not listening to the technocrats, or is it plain ignorance? Where do you think the problem is? Bright, are you with me?
Yes. God does a lot of miracles in our lives. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been talking to you today, listening to you and how you narrated your own story, your own bits of the story. You would agree with me that, as I earlier on alluded to, If politicians will listen to the technocrats and then take note of the critical reports that comes out, even from various audits in the facility, we would have known that some are device and instrument or equipment related, and those are the things we needed to fix. But are those things going to be what will give them the vote that they need? These are questions I have always asked myself, and then I have never gotten answers to, because you don't attempt to understand the thinking of the Ghanaian ourselves. People are so fascinated with seeing flashy buildings and other things that are virtually empty with the things that will give us what we need. And that is what I continue to say. How many doctors do we need in a facility? Consider our primary healthcare level, the primary facility, district hospitals, the secondary hospitals, the tertiary, and then more. The situation you are describing to us now happened in a tertiary facility where they are supposed to have these basic equipment and amenities that they don't have. So you can go back to ask yourself, those our mothers who are seeking healthcare down there in the communities, which has the only district hospital as the highest facility, what is happening there? So you don't actually know whether our politicians work with the reports that are available to fix the gaps thereof, or they are tempted to use the things that they think they can do better for us that are not documented anywhere. Because all these things that Dr. Siedu said are the realities. These are sitting in reports in Ghana. Every year, just consider the annual reports from the ministry and the Ghana Health Service and the likes. And you get to know the gaps there. Go to the facilities themselves and take their reports, and you will see. In the documentary we are watching, a lady is just talking about the batteries to the defibrillator. Is it too expensive for a country like Ghana to replace a battery and get service technicians to be working on these machines from time to time? No, but what do we see? After all, is it going to be is it a problem, or is it the first time somebody is going to die because there's no defibrillator or a ventilator? No. So the facility will continue to suffer. For them, the politicians, they have the opportunity of seeking healthcare somewhere due to the diplomacies that they carry themselves across. And then they will leave the very Ghanaians, their own citizens who brought them to power. So when you hear such stories, you are too demoralized and don't know what to do next. As I said, if you are tempted to say, oh, we are going on demonstration, we are going to the parliament, we are going here, at the end of the day, what has happened in all the demonstrations that have gone on? When people are talking about changing personalities so that even our economy becomes a bit sustainable or pick up shape, it's like nobody is hearing us.
Right. So
like the nurse said, or the doctor said, they give up on the patients, and we advocates sometimes are tempted to even give up because nobody listens to you, no changes are seen, nobody is doing anything to anybody in this country. So you only pray to God to protect you and your family whenever you move out. Otherwise, I am telling you, at one safety conference, regional directors and then health professionals were mentioning it. Our system were not working. When they were themselves sick from their constituencies, they came to Accra. Nobody knew and could speak to their faces that you are Dr. So and so. And for that matter, they dumped them somewhere. What about me and you that nobody knows at all? We have to face the challenges in our system. And some of them are what we are looking at today. A tertiary facility without a ventilator. When somebody comes out from an emergency situation, what are we going to do? We are just going to observe that person die like that. And it's a very situation in our country that we find ourselves in our country. And I don't know And we will continue to advocate and mention this. We thank you for the opportunity. In fact, continue to do this for us so that we will speak to those who would hear, and one day, we know we will get a leader that will be in the position to fix it for us. So Ghana becomes a healthy nation. Thank you.
Hold for me, Mr. Nyako. Interesting points. We're in this together. I've always said, and I'm going to one of the politicians on this matter, I've always said, you know, there have been, and I always stay away from mentioning the names, but we have had politicians in this country, even to the highest office of the land, have medical emergencies. And we have seen the things that have happened. You know what? I might as well go ahead and mention the PV Obeng's, his health situation in a vehicle somewhere. Was it a taxi or something? Who knows if we had better health conditions, whether he could have been rushed somewhere. Emisa Arthur, our former vice president, Professor Mills of blessed memory, all of them, among others, who have had health situations. I remember that member of parliament, I think minister as well, from the MPP's end. You see, they forget that you can be traveling elsewhere for checkups and all of that. But if there's an emergency, you will have to follow what is here. And if what is here is that bad, you might get caught. It will shock you when you will get caught. Dr. Margaret Nawane is a deputy ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Straight question to you. You have about only 10% of our medical facilities, if I heard Dr. Essiedu right, with...
Come again?
Can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I'm in my constituency, so the reception is not that very good.
Can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I can hear you, okay.
I'm saying,
yes.
We have about 10%, only 10% of our health facilities, if I heard Dr. Essiedu right, with thermometers, something as basic as a thermometer to check your temperature. Why is it that our hospitals, many of them, lack basic equipment like thermometers, like defibrillators, like ventilators? The question is, why?
Good morning to the viewers of Joy TV. And I'll say that, well, I might put the percentage, in terms of thermometers, I might put the percentage above the 10% anyway.
You'll put it at what?
I'll put it above 10% anyway, definitely. In terms of thermometers, yes. But
based on what? Is it a study?
But it is true that, in fact, we lack a lot of equipment. And all this has to do with, in fact, our wrong prioritization. If you consider the amount of money that comes into the health sector in a year, we should be doing something far better than this. And I blame practically everybody, including the politicians, including the technocrats, who are supposed to advise the politicians, and probably the whole country, because we start certain things and we don't ask questions. We are just happy that we started them. Because if you consider a situation that last year on Agenda 111, we spent almost, or since we started, we spent almost $200 million on Agenda 111. And we've not added a single bed in terms of the number of beds in the country. We've not been able to do that. Then we ask ourselves, what are our aims? What do we want to solve? What mistakes do we want to overcome? What are the problems that we want to solve? And you realize that as a nation, honestly speaking, we are not putting our priorities right. We are simply getting everything wrong. And we are applauding where we should be condemning. This is what is happening in the country, in the health sector. And if you ask me, sitting as a member of the Health Committee of Parliament, I'll tell you that, look, not that we don't try to resist whatever is happening, but what is happening is that most of these issues are brought in, they are packaged in such a way that you would think that the resources to carry out these activities are already available, and that the other problems that we have, we also have other means of solving them. But in the long run, we mix everything up. You realize that this maintenance of hospitals that you are talking about, they are not carried out. We are not able to do them. And that is not because of the fact that there's no money coming into the health sector. Indeed, this government, the NPP have, in fact, I believe that one of the highest amount of money coming into the health sector, even during the COVID era. The amount of money that came into the health sector solved most of us. But it looks as if we manage the information in such a way that the technocrats, the politicians are able to get their way using just the management of information. And the rest of the country were left behind. And by the time that we start asking questions about what has happened, or what are we supposed to do, or knowing that we've gotten everything wrong, it is already gone.
I get the point you're making, but you yourself, you're a politician. You're a lawmaker. You are deflecting part of the blame onto the ruling administration. I understand. You say with a lot of these decisions, you don't side with them, but they go ahead. I mean, we also saw what happened when your party, the NDC, was in power. But the point I'm trying to make is that even with everything that is happening, are you saying that as legislators, you have no way of whipping in line authority so that the right things must be done? Look at the footage we have of the Effia Nkwanta Hospital. It's a death trap. It's a death trap. We have hospitals in this country that do not have the bare bones of logistics. I mean, how can this be? How do we explain this?
It's true. It's true. I mean, if you talk of defibrillators, well, I'll say that for some time now, emergency medicine is growing in the country. I was at the Kolebu emergency 30 years ago as a house officer, and we were not even having cardiac monitors at that time, at that center. That is Kolebu 30 years ago, around 1993. And you see that if you compare it to what we have now, probably we are now getting the sense of what we call emergency medicine as a specialty and as a way of managing patients who are brought in urgently. But defibrillators, even that is at a high level. You don't have, if you go to most of these hospitals, I believe that apart from the thermometer that they are talking about, the BP apparatus, how many do they have? Ventilators, simple surgical equipment. What do we have? But we are pushing the resources into Agenda 111. When you want to talk about Agenda 111, people think that you are against infrastructure development. During my presentation, the budget presentation, I asked myself, if this $200 million that has been spent on Agenda 111 was spent on that, which needed about $50 million to be able to complete, to start and complete it, and we're able to use this money to build about 15 or 20 hospitals. That is the $200 million. Is it not better than spreading them across the whole country, doing block work? And we know that when you have done block work, you've done nothing. We are people who have built in Ghana here. We build our houses. We know that the block work is nothing, and this is what the government is doing to showcase. I'm saying that we are getting our priorities right or wrong. We are applauding where we should not be. Our health ministry is not doing the best. What they've been able to do is to get there, and authorities are used to cover up for the bad decisions that they are taking. And remember, in Parliament, they have their numbers. Ghanaians gave them the majority. It could be one, yes, but it is a majority. And that is where the problem lies. And I believe that you said that during the NDC period, we also did our own. NDC period, it was targeted. It was targeted. We built some number of hospitals. We completed them. There were some few we did not complete. We expected this government should be able to complete them. Now go to Formina, go to Kumewu, go to we call it central hospital in a central. Go to all these hospitals. They are still there. Up to now, they are not operational. And we are talking of building and building and building. And that is what Ghanaians are looking at. And when you resist it, you become like an enemy of society, because they think that you don't want to the development to get to certain areas of the country.
This is particularly pathetic. I'll pose the last question to you and then dispatch you, because I know you're in your constituency and you likely have to make your rounds. But having said all of this, even before I get to my other guests on other pertinent matters, I'd like to find out from you, since you have to go. What then do we do? Because if we keep on like this, it's clear our health system at a point will fall to its knees, if it's not there already. You go to most of our hospitals, you must engage in some form of corruption, else even getting blood, getting a bed, you will not get it. Last year, someone was in need. I had to go speak, do all kinds of things. It is crazy what is going on. We have seen vaccine shortages. I've never seen it in my life. Vaccine shortages for children. Children in this country. Not once. I don't even know what the situation is now. What then, Dr. Nawani, my final bit to you before I move on to my other guests. What then do you feel you as legislators can do and we as a people ought to do to change the script?
Yes. I remember when this vaccine shortage came, that is especially when there was a business outbreak because of vaccine shortage in the northern part of the country. I made a statement on the floor of Parliament. I tried to let the media get on top of it. And for some time, I believe that we made some progress. But the issue of some of these fundamental things, or like vaccine, fundamental things like vaccine, not being available in our country, it's a shame. It's a shame. That is why I'm saying that we are simply not prioritizing right. We have some amount of counterpart funding that we're supposed to provide to ensure that we get all these vaccines in their numbers, that's as a country. But in terms of funding, it's mostly donor funded. It's mostly donor funded. This counterpart funding, I mean, it will surprise you to know that our government is not always able to provide. And that is all I'm telling you that, look, let us not look anywhere. You can blame the politicians, you can blame the technocrats, but as a nation, we should be on top of issues. We should let things happen before we come back and do a postmortem. What we are doing now is like a postmortem. Most of the issues we are discussing, they happen. We are supposed to be on top and discuss the issue before they descend on us. And one bad thing about what is happening in the country is that when things are being discussed in Parliament, a lot of these civil societies and other things appear to be mute on them at the time that we are discussing them in Parliament. The minority do not have the numbers, but they bring out the issues. Now, it is up to civil society It is up to the press. It is up to the National House of Chiefs. It is up to the state society to join Parliament at that point to try to do the right thing. But when these issues are brought up and we don't join Parliament to change the situation there, and it goes into the budget. For example, we are not talking of ECG 15%. All these things were stated in the budget. When the minority were rejecting them, nobody spoke about it. Now it is an issue which has been picked up by the trade union organizations. Where were they when these issues were being discussed in Parliament?
Right.
Let us get our the people will say that when the issues are not being discussed and trying to become a policy, trying to become a law, at that point we should all resist. If it means that we should even go on demonstrations, fine. Let us resist at that point. But we'll wait. When the thing now it becomes like a law, now they are being trying to implement it.
So you're saying the way forward is let's hold our leaders accountable before there's a mess. Look at the Public Accounts Committee, for example. Sometimes you only see things after the fact. You are calling for demonstrations. I hope that if your administration comes to power again, if they do, and people also demonstrate on these same points, you will not feel hard done by.
During the NDC era, I believe that this is where the civil society and other organizations, you were really very hard on NDC.
Right.
I don't know what has happened now,
okay.
But they were really very hard, and I think it was positive. Yes.
All right.
It was positive. All these things are positive things. We encourage people to demonstrate it.
All right.
To ensure that we get things right.
Dr. Nawani, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best in your constituency. Dr. Mark Kurt Nawani was just speaking to me. He is Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Health Committee. But let me come back to you, Dr. Effia Nkwanta Reg. Having listened to Dr. Nawani on everything he said, and before you come in, just to acknowledge some of the messages coming in, Belladonna Quay says this is a disgrace for both the NDC and the NPP. Sylvester says, Benjamin, what you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. In Sandema, all the departments are in dilapidated structures. I think I've done that. This one says, Ben, we have had bad managers holding positions in these hospitals. How much does it cost to maintain wooden ceilings and painting cost? Just develop a strategy for small IGF, and as a manager, use it to solve the small problem before it degenerates. It's easier said than done. It's not as simple as you put it. Oba Lami says, wicked leaders everywhere. Evans says, what actually is Ghana turning into? Why can't our leaders think about us, the citizens? Dramado Selom Dramani says, Benjamin, I totally agree with one of your guests who said our leaders are only interested in building flashy hospitals without providing essential medical equipment and specialists. Someone is talking about VAT, being tired of taxes and all of that, but that's not the substantive conversation. Iggy says, why can't we spend the money on expanding and retooling the existing hospitals, clinics, and polyclinics than to have blocks raised which will never become hospitals? Maybe I should put that question to you, Dr. Effia Nkwanta Reg, and if you have any reactions to what Dr. Nawani said, I'm sure you do. Over to you, sir.
Right, thanks. You see, Benjamin, clearly, listening to Dr. Nawani, this is part of the problem. Dr. Nawani says when it comes to pharmacies with thermometers, they will be more than 10%. But I am not saying, it's not Kwame saying, this is in the Ghana Health Harmonization Report 2022-2023. And I read, only 10% of facilities with a main pharmacy store had a functional thermostat, and 4% of the facilities with a current room temperature of minus 15 to 25 degrees inclusive. It's stated. So when I hear a parliamentarian dispute something that has actually been researched by the WHO, the Ghana Health Service, the Ministry of Health, then I know he's not read the documents. And if the people who are making the laws are not reading the documents, then we have a big problem. And yesterday, the same thing happened on PM Express with the PRO of the Ministry of Health, who was challenging things that were in the health harmonization report. And I had to take him on the same way and say, and so I'm becoming concerned because now, yesterday it happened with someone who speaks on behalf of the MPP. Today it's happened with someone who speaks on behalf of the NDC.
Right.
That should concern us as a country. That the people who are actually in charge are not reading. So they probably are not reading, and that's why they know we also don't read.
The people in charge are not in charge because they don't know.
No, they are not reading. They commission the reports because they have to commission them. And people get certain allowances. And people can build buildings. But when it comes to actually reading what is in those reports, they don't. Yes, I read them. And so I was saying them out of memory. But when he challenged it, I had to open up the report to see, have I quoted wrongly? Because if I've quoted wrongly, then I acknowledge it because people are listening to it.
Right.
But when I realized that actually the 10%, only 4% even have a functioning cap, it goes down when you go minus 15 to 25 for storing things like very, very freeze-dried things, we're in trouble. And so I ask myself, then he starts blaming the MPP. But if you are not reading the reports, how do you even stand on the floor of Parliament and challenge them at the health select?
Right.
So you see, we have serious problems, systemic, and that's why I said we should elevate this conversation far above the head of the technocrat and start challenging and holding the policymakers to account. Because if the person coming with the policy is coming with a shambolic policy, and the person who's supposed to challenge it has also not read the document that will give him the tools and the statistics to challenge it, then we are all running in the dark, and that is dangerous.
And that even reminds me about Agenda 111, right? Imagine these same people who are not reading, who don't know specifically the problems on the ground. Oh, political situation. Let's put up 111 hospitals in districts and regions and all of that without actually addressing the problem.
Let me do a quick mathematical off-the-back calculation for you to appreciate how dire that decision is. If you look in the facts and figures, the Ghana Health Service, document on their quality of work. It tells you that there are about 2,700 hospitals in Ghana that need a doctor, at least one doctor to run. These hospitals run for 24 hours. So at least if the doctor is working an 8-hour contract, which none of them do, you need a minimum of 3 doctors to run on each of these hospitals. If you do that calculation, 3 times 2,700, you are getting to over 7,000 doctors you need. When you take out the 5 teaching hospitals, which are taking out 1,500, we do not have enough doctors to even go around the current stock of hospitals we have.
To talk of.
On what basis are you building 111? So if then you want to challenge it, you have to challenge it with their own statistics. But if the people are also not reading the facts and figures from the Ministry of Health, how are they going to challenge these things? And that is why I get animated when I start talking about these things and I realize that people are not talking to the numbers, but they are going on an emotional tirade. I struggle. Because if you want to argue, let's argue the numbers. At the end of the day, we all want it to get better. And so, if we want it to get better, we need to know what our numbers are, what our stock of equipment are, what our stock of human resources are, what our attrition rate of health human resources are, what our production of health human resources are. But if we are not talking all these numbers and we all go on and say, oh, no, as for thermometers in pharmacy, I'll put it more than 10%.
Yeah.
I get worried.
Yeah.
I get worried. And then I have to push back. And I have to push back very aggressively. And I make no apologies when I take those postings, because at the end of the day, we are speaking to Ghanaians whose money was used to commission these reports. And if we're commissioning those reports and you are not reading them, then as a researcher in the area, I need to push back forcefully.
Right.
And at that point, I don't take any prisoners. I don't really care who you are. And you see, gentlemen, let me end it this way. The sad truth is, when you take these postings, like I sometimes take, the very people you are advocating for, the Ghanaians, we've divided ourselves partisanly. By now, go and check Facebook, the insults flying on my wall.
Yeah.
And you know it. They've been flying since, the NDC time have been flying through the NPP time. Yes, it's just water off the back of a stone, because that is how I've become. But the point is, the people doing that don't even know that they are putting themselves in harm's way. So, and that's why I'm saying that as a people, we are collectively lazy. And I have just pointed out to you laziness on the part of leadership, laziness on the part of the opposition. And I'm just showing you when it comes to partisanship, laziness on the part of the citizen. And that is why our health system is where it is.
And partisanship is killing us. I've seen some people sending me messages, for example, there's this Francis Kasua Datas guy sending me a message about John Dramani Mahama and that everything he's saying is not, you know, I feel a lot of us in this country, we have serious problems, because everything has become so political. Nothing related to the conversation. It's just to, oh, this person is coming and Dr. Baumia is better. How does that situate in the conversation? You sitting there. If you were to go to a public health facility now, and if something happened to you, and I mean, God forbid, will that person you are campaigning for come and save you? But I totally agree with you, Dr. Siedu. This is where we are. So people will take an entrenched position for the NDC, and whatever is wrong there, they will not see it because the only tinting they have are green, white, black, and red. Someone else will take a position for the MPP, and the only tinting they see, even when things are down there, all they see is red, white, and blue. Well, we there inside, Abby. If you go, your family loses you, maybe we'll start learning some sense. Bribe. And I use my words carefully. I meant exactly what I said. We've become so polarized in this country that we are not thinking. And we are allowing the politicians to feed into it and play us like ping pong because we refuse to think. And so they find a way in the middle and play us. Right. There's also the issue of maintenance. We don't maintain our hospital facilities, even those we have. I don't know the last time it was that you went to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, formerly the Rich Hospital. But I look at how it was only a few years ago. Go and look at it now. I've been going there because, like I said, 2 people I know have had health situations and been there. If you look at the insides, if you look at what it was then and now, look at some equipment and the rest, you would ask yourself, what is our maintenance culture in this country, even when it comes to health? How do we think? Right. I believe that's a crucial part of the problem as well. What do you think?
Oh, yes, thank you very much, Ben. In fact, I already have mixed feelings to react to some of the things Dr. Kate Nawani said, and I would like to cut that across quickly and take up the question. You see, I heard Dr. Kate speak like me, who is a civil society actor, and that is a good feeling to me that, yes, all of us are seeing the same problems. But at the end of the day, I was also amazed, and it surprised me to hear him speak like that when he occupies the high office of a deputy ranking for health in the parliament, where all the challenges are brought to, where all the budgets are approved, where all the prioritizations are made. So if Dr. Kate will speak like this, I am happy though, but I expect him to have, given us more insights and better solution to the topic we are discussing than also shifting the blame on maybe his colleagues, because they have both experienced the same thing and they have not given us the best as NDC or NPP as Ghanaians. Now let's go to the maintenance issues. This is something that will happen in the facility and nobody will see it. Therefore, the politician will not push any money there. The facility managers would only raise their IGF and look at how they can replace their stock, commodities, consumables, and even some of these equipment that we are talking about, because they don't have them. And they would continue to defend audit death mortalities where these...
Hello, Bright.
Equipment could have helped them to save people. All their attention. Hello, they are going to shift all their attention to how they can get commodities for consumables for treatments, other than maintaining infrastructures, which is the business of government. And not Rich alone. Rich is so close to us. Let's go out of Rich to the regions and then the districts and see. I believe as we move forward, we should look at how we can do a comprehensive audit of our facilities and the medical equipment, and then across the countries at each level, from the district level to even the quaternary level, and look at what the gaps are and begin to raise funding to fix them. Ghana has had a lot of funding for emergency response and preparedness when COVID. I don't understand why some of these things are not coming up.
Right.
Why government is still not prioritizing some of these things to solve the challenges in the facilities. So, moving forward, if government can even cut down on the 111 and look at doing a few 11 and making them functional, it will help us then continue building and then build.
Right. Bright, thank you for that submission. I'll come to you shortly for your concluding comments. This comment comes through. It says, good morning, please. Okay, so those are just pleasantries. This is sick, and some of us, the youth, don't see anything wrong with our leaders. That is why some person will win an election in this country. I can't mention. You are mentioning someone who won a parliamentary primary recently in the MPP. And you say it's from Papa Yenzu Kwanza from Takrady. Well, it goes back to the politics I was just talking about. I guess, like I said, we all be day inside. There I'll be called Ayarisabia, say one ya Ayarisa, na bibi ko to wo hwa, say ya wa. Ya kai wo si dey bi. Bibia ekoyi. You think everything is going well. When you go there that day, or that loved one goes to hospital, and you don't see them again, then maybe you'll wake up. This other comment comes through. It says, in my area, we have a new hospital, but if you want to conduct an ulcer test or even a scan, you have to move your patient from Saula to Bole for the scan. While it is alleged that the machines are there, now we're being told, like I started by saying, the Effia Nkwanta Hospital, whether it is arm twisting or whatever, they say they have defibrillators now. We've not independently confirmed that. But when we went there, they did not have it the last time, which are the scenes you actually saw. And sometimes too, it's about, you can't even talk. Educational system, health system, because if you do, you'll be removed from post, or this will happen, or you'll be transferred. So people will also, it is what it is. Dr. Siedu, what is the way forward? How do we solve this? Unless we have Dr. Nawani, I hear he has a comment on maintenance. Dr. Nawani, you're back. I hear you have a comment on maintenance before we wrap.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, with the situation of maintenance, I've followed the health system for the past 30 years. When it was even cash and carry, there was a quarterly allocation from central government to hospitals for maintenance. Now, in the advent of the NHIA, facilities are expected to use their IGF to do maintenance, especially on their buildings, etc. It's part of their IGF that they are expected to use. But what do you see? What we are seeing is that the tariff structure from NHIA is not good. So in the long run, what comes in as revenue is not even able to run most of the hospitals, let alone leave some for them to be able to carry out the maintenance. And this, let me tell you, has to do with the amount of money that is given to NHIA. The NHIA is not the amount of money that is given to the NHIA from the total amount that is collected. Sometimes it's about 50% of the total amount that is collected. That is money that is collected in the name of the sick, in the name of the deprived citizens of Ghana, in the name of those who need health care. this amount of money that is collected in their name is not used for the purpose. The finance ministry do not release even up to 80% of the amount that is collected for this purpose. So the blame, initially, I used to blame the NHIA for that, but now I've realized that it is not the NHIA, it is rather the finance minister, the finance ministry that has to be blamed for poor releases to the NHIA, which is reflected, or it is reflected in poor tariffs to service providers.
Right.
And that is now what is happening in our facilities. It is, if you go to most of the facilities, they are worse than they were in around 2004, 2005, onwards, even up to 2015, 2015. They are worse now because the releases are very, very bad. The last time there was a very high release was around 2015, 2016, when under the NDC, 80% of the amount was released. But we have to advocate for 100% release from the Ministry of Finance to the NHIA.
Right. So your point is made there, and we all know what is going on there. I recently spoke to someone in the pharmaceutical sector who says he's had to stop accepting the National Health Insurance card because he's owed millions of cedis, which have not been paid to him. But Dr. Nawani, before you go again, since you decided to call in this time, before you go, Dr. Effia pointed to something which I feel you should answer to.
Yes.
Some of you in the health sector, you yourselves do not have the data, you don't have the facts, and that is a part of the problem. Yesterday, he engaged, I believe, on PM Express, the PRO of, is it the Ghana Health Service? Dr. Effia, was it the Ghana Health Service or the Ministry of Health? Okay, so one of them. And this person did not have information and was trying to counter him. The person was clueless, didn't know what they were talking about. When I spoke about the thermometers, that the report, per report, it says 10%. You said, no, you think it's above that. But the report says it is 10%. So part of the problem, he alludes, is the fact that you, the people who should know better, you are not even reading these documents, the health reports and others. And so even in fashioning laws or policies, you don't get it right. How do you react to that?
I would say that probably we are not reading all the documents that are available, but just be sure that we are analyzing all or scrutinizing practically everything that comes to our notice and to us. We read enough. The situation, like I'm saying, is that this fight is not the fight of only parliamentarians, nor is it a fight of one or two people. He has that information from wherever he might have gotten those documents from. He has that information. I'm saying that he should join us in the fight. That's what I'm saying. With that knowledge that he has, he should join us in the fight at the right time. Or not that when we are fighting, initially the fight is said that it is an NDC-MPP fight. So let's leave them, once the two parties are fighting among themselves, let us leave them. With their knowledge or not knowledge, let us leave them to fight their fight. And when you do that, you become a spectator, but not a citizen.
Thank you, Dr. Nawani, for getting back to us on this conversation. I'll read these final comments and take the final comments of my guests. This one says, Ben, the entire Secondary Takrade is sick. Come, and the nature of roads in the city. Aprem do kwesimintim to Takrade roads for Effia Nkwanta Regional Hospital. These two big parties are not helping Ghana. We, the poor ones, are dying. Papa Yenzu sends that again. Then Kwabene J says, it is very worrying when you're discussing national issues that affect most of us and youth of today. That person's comment has been deleted, but youth of today will spring up politics. Meanwhile, these youth cannot even afford private hospitals, but will blindly be speaking for party A or B, say it, NDC or MPP. But Ben, why are some private hospitals still in good shape and lovely to be in? So I still say this government hospital or these government hospitals need good managers. So you be there when we are discussing these issues. Be there and be doing MPP and NDC. oh, everything is fine. You go to the hospital someday. When it happens to you, it will catch up with you someday. Dr. Essiedu, I'd like to take your final comments on this matter. What's the way forward? From that, I'll go to Bright. Dr. Essiedu.
Well, thanks. The way forward for me is that we acknowledge the problems. The first thing about it, as a health professional, the first thing is about accurate diagnosis and accepting that there's a problem. So that for me is the first thing. If we keep doing these surveys and research and don't acknowledge that we have a problem, and then go to the second stage of trying to prioritize the problems and dealing with them in a short, medium, and then having long-term plans to prevent recurrence, we are not going to solve these problems because we are constantly going to be firefighting. And for me, that is how we can fix this. We have the data now. It's copious, like Dr. Nawani eventually alluded to. They are not reading all of it. And I like it when people can raise their hands and say, well, yes, at this part, fine. But that tells us that there is the information. Is it also that maybe in Parliament they need more research support and other things to help them tease out these things? So we need to get the diagnosis of our problems right and then acknowledge them and then start fixing them. For me, that's how we should go. And I'll end it this way. No party in 2024 should come to us with a health manifesto to say, I'll do X, Y, Z, when it's not in tandem with the health harmonization report or with the facts and figures from the Ministry of Health. Anyone who does that, we should advocate and clamp the person down straight away. That would be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending time with us and educating us on many fronts, Dr. Essiedu. I'll wrap with you, Bright Emisanyako. Your final comments, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, once again. And I think we've had a very lovely discussion, and I'll continue to reiterate that we do a comprehensive audit of our medical equipment across all levels of the facilities, from the district level, the regional, and even the tertiary levels. Then we have to set our priorities beyond just building blocks, but look at how we are going to make facilities more functional, replacing the needed equipment, the devices, and then at least training more doctors and specialists to even serve within the network of practice that has become a new policy for adoption by the Ghana Health Service. I believe when we are able to do that, we could progress and look into the future with the current Agenda 111 being cut down so that we could build about 11 of them, make them district model hospitals and functional, so that the standards, they will set up a new standard for adoption for all other district facilities moving forward to look out for and then go by that. I think that will help us as citizens, and then we'll begin to bridge the gap slowly in that direction than the way we are doing things generally without considering our priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bright. Those who joined us for this all-important conversation, a nation's health is its wealth. Your individual health is your wealth. But if you don't get it right, where do you go from there? Those who joined us, you just heard Bright Emisanyako. He is National Chairman, Ghana Coalition of NGOs in Health. We also heard from the Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Health Committee, Dr. Margaret Nawani, together with Dr. Kwame Sapong Essiedu, a CDD fellow. Still to come on the AM show, we bring you AM on Wheels. Where is our bus going today? Well, we'll be in the Wejagbawe constituency to interact with residents there on what they want their Member of Parliament to fix before her tenure expires. You know that Tina Mensah has been ousted by Jerry Ahmed, who will be representing the MPP in election 2024. But what will Tina Mensah leave as her legacy? Sweetie Abochi will be live from that constituency when we return on the AM show.